Hi, my name is Joe McDonough and I'm the CEO of Sexual Health West. We've been known as AIDS West for many years, since 1987 in fact. However, in 2020, we went through the process of a name change to Sexual Health West. Under this name, we look forward to many years ahead, continuing to support people's HIV and sexual health needs across the west of Ireland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this World AIDS Day online seminar entitled Encouraging Physical and Mental Resilience. Although this seminar is primarily for those living with HIV, it is in fact open to all, as we are sure that the contributions and the key messages would be beneficial to all. I don't need to tell you that 2020 has been a very different year from any other. It has been very tough and challenging for many due to the impact and restrictions related to COVID-19. However, there is a light as we see the development of vaccines, and we hope that these will be available to those who need it worldwide in 2021. We would usually host a seminar for our clients or service users around World AIDS Day, and this would then lead into a concert in St. Nicholas's Church in Galway. Sadly, this is not possible this year. The social aspect of the seminar or the concert have always been massively important to those attending. The peer and social support aspect were in many ways as important as the seminar and the concert. I sincerely hope that we will all be able to meet up again in 2021 and once more enjoy that same social aspect that is missing from this seminar. I want to introduce and thank our new support service coordinator, Nicole McGuigan, who's done an excellent job pulling together this seminar. Nicole started with us at the end of March, just as the first COVID-related lockdown kicked in. It can be challenging enough starting a new job, but to do so in these circumstances makes it even tougher. Nicole has settled into the role brilliantly, and 8 months later, it feels like she's now an established member of the team. Many of you will have met Nicole already, and I know she's looking forward to meeting many of you again in a few months ahead. So once again, a big thank you to Nicole for superb work pulling together this seminar.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I've met a few of you, as Joe said, and there's still more to meet. It's been great to start working with Sexual Health West. As Joe said, the timing hasn't been ideal, I guess, but it's a great organisation to work for, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
I would also like to introduce the brilliant team at Sexual Health West and say a thank you to them all for their excellent work across the year in very difficult circumstances.
Hello, everybody, and wishing you a very happy World AIDS Day. I hope you have a fantastic day at the seminar. And I'm Lorraine O'Connell, so I'm the Wiser Education Coordinator. So thank you and enjoy the day.
Hello, I'm Kieran Brown. I'm on the team as well. And I'd like to also welcome everybody to the seminar. And I hope it all goes well. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jo Mohan. I'm also would like to welcome you to the seminar. I'm the office administrator, and I hope you have a great day.
Hello everyone, happy World AIDS Day and welcome to our seminar. My name is Grace and I'm a Wiser Relationships and Sexuality Educator. So I hope you enjoyed the day.
Hi, I'm Neil. I work with drugs and alcohol with the Drugs Task Force with Sexual Health West, and I hope you have a really fulfilling and interesting day.
Hello everyone and welcome to the World AIDS Day seminar. My name is Megan. I'm a Relationships and Sexuality Educator at Sexual Health West, and I hope you guys have a fabulous day.
Thanks for that. Sexual Health West are lucky, very lucky indeed to have such a skilled and dedicated team. The theme for World AIDS Day 2020 is Ending the HIV/AIDS Epidemic, Resilience and Impact. And as I mentioned earlier, this seminar is entitled Encouraging Physical and Mental Resilience. In keeping with this theme, we have a marvelous lineup of speakers that is second to none. Firstly, we have a brief animation video on living with HIV and the importance of medicine during times of COVID-19. Next, we will hear from Dr. Dilis, Clare, as she discusses how using diet, nutrition, and herbs can have health benefits and also increase our immunity system. Dr. Malie Coyne will explain and discuss the 3 elements to self-compassion. Ui Riada will demonstrate techniques to enable us to get the most out of our lives. Patrick McKeown will explain how we can bring quietness to the mind. And finally, Ashley in Richmond encourages us to calm our nervous system. I would like to say a thank you to our funder, the HSE, for their ongoing support. Without this support, we would not be able to do the essential work that we do across the west of Ireland. I hope you enjoyed this seminar, and I would now like to introduce the first element of the seminar. We have a very short video with some very important key messages for people living with HIV on reminders on how to keep on top of their medical needs in these challenging times of COVID-19.
Advice for people living with HIV. This short video is for people living with HIV. It provides advice about how to stay healthy during the COVID-19 epidemic. COVID-19 poses a serious threat, and people living with HIV, together with the general population, should take all recommended preventive measures to reduce exposure to the virus. It is important to pay full attention to the medical advice you will receive. At present, there is no drug to effectively treat this illness. There is hope for a vaccine, but not for some time. The main way to stay well is to prevent yourself from meeting COVID-19 virus, as we will describe, and to continue to take prescribed medications for HIV and other diseases. You will hear many pieces of false information regarding this disease. Always act as recommended by the World Health Organization. This advice is not difficult, but does take a lot of effort to follow. Preventing illness in HIV-positive patients. All people living with HIV should follow the same precautions as the general population. Wash hands often, cough into the elbow, social distancing of no less than 1 meter, and other actions the government may recommend. If in close contact with a suspected or confirmed COVID-19 patient, should restrict movement and monitor health status for 14 days. If unwell, especially with fever, cough, or breathlessness, should seek medical care. Be prepared, ask for support, give support. It is essential during this COVID-19 epidemic that you do not miss any daily doses of your medications for HIV. Make sure you have a good supply of your medications, at least a month if possible. It is important to note, however, that poor control of other diseases, including diabetes or high blood pressure, may put you at higher risk of harm if you suffer COVID-19 infection. So taking medications for these illnesses is also critical during this epidemic. Know how and where to access treatments and other supports within your community. Discuss with your family and friends how to support each other if you become ill and need to self-isolate. Think about how you would get food and medicines, and who would care for your children. If you are well, ensure your friends have an adequate supply of essential medicines, and make sure you have ways of contacting them. This outbreak of COVID-19 may cause fear and anxiety, so remember to take care of yourself and connect with loved ones. Finally, remember COVID-19 and HIV are caused by different viruses. The drugs used to treat HIV do not prevent or treat COVID-19. Only use medications as advised by your healthcare worker.
Well, that was a good brief summary for people living with HIV in these times of COVID. There's a lot of messages out there that are quite scary and frightening around COVID, especially for people who have a chronic illness or are living with a pre-existing condition. I think one of the reasons why we really wanted to focus on resilience in this seminar today was because there are a lot of things that we can do to build ourselves up, to build up our mental well-being, our mental strength, and to build up our physical strength and our physical resilience as well. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Dilis, Clare, who's going to talk about how to build up your physical immunity, good things to do to look after your body, to give yourself a good, strong immune system so that if something like COVID-19 comes into your environment or if you're exposed to it, you're supporting yourself and being able to cope with it physically as well as possible. Dr. Clare and I recorded this conversation a little bit earlier, but here it is now. I'd just like to welcome Dr. Dilis Clare, who's here with us today for World AIDS Day. Dr. Clare is a trained medical doctor and a general practitioner. She is also trained in herbal medicine. Dr. Clare has a clinic here in Galway, in Sea Road, opposite Ernie's, down by the Jazz School. Her clinic there works in collaborative medicine, so you'll get the best of both worlds, medical health and herbal and complementary medicine in the same location. Dr. Clare is going to talk to us today about how people living with a chronic health condition like HIV can use diet, nutrition, and herbs to increase their immunity and resilience. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Hello, good morning, Nicole.
Good morning.
Good morning to everybody out there, and happy AIDS Day. Great to have a celebration as to how well everybody is doing and thriving, I hope. So I'm helping to do that more in the future.
That's great. Thanks so much for being here today and spending some time with us to talk about this. So the first thing I'd really like to ask you is, as we know, people who live with HIV can now live long and healthy, happy lives. I wonder if you would let us know what you would consider the top 3 nutritional and herbal ways that people who live with HIV and who are on HIV medications could stay healthy.
Okay. We have a very short time, so I'm going to be very, very deliberate and very succinct. So pay attention. Vitamin D. Anytime the sun shines, get out, take your clothes off. Not on World AIDS Day. But you want sunshine all over your body. So that's if you get your bikini out, during the winter, take a vitamin D supplement. I can't give direct evidence, particularly for HIV, but for everything to do with the immune system and to do with the brain being a steroid related, all of the nervous transmitters, all of these things need vitamin D. So I'm just extrapolating from the bleeding obvious, right? Vitamin D. Essential fatty acids, oily fish, 3 times a week. Nuts and seeds, 2 or 3 teaspoons, 3 times a week. I didn't say 2 or 3 bags 3 times a week, because they can be very moreish. 2 or 3 teaspoons 3 times a week. So nuts and seeds, oily fish, and avocados. Okay, 2 or 3 avocados a week. Buy them a week ahead and ripen them in your fruit bowl with your bananas, put them in a brown bag, and it helps them soften up. And the herbs that I would mention, particularly for your food, the last thing on the food is the 7 to 9 veg and fruit every day. Can't get enough of them, okay? Particularly the veg that grow over the ground. So in other words, not too many potatoes, carrots, parsnips, but definitely include them, especially in the winter. They are hearty foods, they're heartwarming foods, and our food should be minding our bodies and our spirits. So you want to be warm and comfortable, and that's all the vegetables for you. But also lots of green vegetables for folic acid and all the other vitamins. So 7 to 9 vegetables and fruit per day. Essential fatty acids and vitamin D. Okay, so that's that. Sorry, I don't mean to be stabbing at you, but very important. So include in that all the garlic, onions, leeks, chives, all of that family. Very, very good for both for living with any chronic viral illness with antiviral properties, but also very good for protecting the lungs, and particularly in times of COVID. So all of those really earn their keep. Turmeric is a specific anti-inflammatory, good for pain, good for anti-cancer, all of the things that having a chronic virus puts a strain on the body. So you don't want to only eliminate the viral load, you also want to program all of your best anti-cancer metabolism, right? So you're looking wider than just a virus. It's not just a virus. We're all unique people. And we have other family histories and genetics and complaints and all the rest of it. So turmeric is very good, particularly, for instance, if you've got arthritis, instead of using non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, the turmeric would be very good. So herbs are very good, not only for having a chronic virus, but also for treating your acne or irritable bowel syndrome, because people who are HIV positive also have all of these things, and the herbal medicines can be very useful for dealing with them. Calendula has been shown to have some antiviral activity, but it's also healing, antifungal, which can be a problem for people. So that herb in particular is very good. Green tea. You know, have two cups of green tea a day. Put some honey in it. Nicole is from New Zealand, so we'll put in a little bit of Manuka honey in there. It doesn't have to be that. If you were to have a choice between the two, it would be local honey as well, particularly around thyme plants. And then add in sage and thyme, because they're antimicrobial. And they help to keep your gut microflora healthy. So sage and thyme. I can say, if you get a cough, use hyssop. Make yourself a hyssop syrup, or you can use in fact, the Kinder kind one, which has hyssop in it, because that's very good for a cold, and also thyme. You can make a very easy onion, thyme, and hyssop syrup based on YouTube. You know, so I love it when people do their own medicines. That's absolutely fantastic. I've no problem with people with HIV using echinacea. And echinacea is good for priming and supporting and modulating. It's not a stimulant, it's not a suppressant, it's a modulator. So it helps your immune system be fit. It's like sending it to the gym so that it's prepared, okay? Going to the gym is a very good idea as well. You can make your own gym at home, lifting any kinds of things and doing all the exercise, very good. So echinacea is very good. So I'll put them in a list for you: garlic, turmeric, marigold, green tea, sage, thyme, and echinacea, and hyssop. Work away, no problems with all of those. Even when you're on the regime, whatever regime of medication people are on. And astragalus. Astragalus is another herb that we use for the immune system. But I really would suggest that you see a medical herbalist to fine tune things like andrographis. Echinacea I'm perfectly happy with. But if you want to use herbal medicine for any other condition, as well as being HIV positive, down at the clinic, I work with another herbalist who also has a degree in herbal medicine. We're all genned up on the pharma. We know what we're doing. So if you want any advice about other medication or using herbs, feel free to make an appointment and come and see us. I've said, did I say the word heartfulness? All of this is about loving yourself, taking the time to love yourself. I'll give you an example. I'm up in an upstairs room. It's not, I don't usually use it during the day. It was cold. I went and I got a heater and I turned it on. These are the small things. Epsom salts in your bath once a week. These are the small things. Very, very important. They're actually, in preparing for today, I did actually find a research article which showed that self-care and I'm saying self-love. They don't write those kinds of words in medical articles. They don't believe in those things. I do. Sometimes any of these chronic illnesses can be a heavy load to bear. So loving yourself is a very good place to start. Approving of yourself is a very good place to start. Being kind to yourself. So self-care, and this can be down to, yes, I will bother to brush my teeth before I go to bed, even though I'm fed up and it's been a bad day. This is about leaving that little 2% at the end of the day for minding yourself. I would always strongly encourage people to use natural products. They're not more expensive. We all use far too much of them. So what you do is you buy natural products. They're in Aldi, they're in Dunn's, they're in everywhere now. So you just have to look for them, and then use them very sparingly. We all use 5 times as much toothpaste as we need. We all use far too much squeezy things in the shower. Get a bar of soap; it's much cheaper, and get yourself a nice bar of soap. So that's how to make it work for you. Things like rose water, rose petals, lavender petals. All of these things, a bowl of lavender petals beside your bed, throw some rose petals in your bath. We have all of those down in the clinic, and they're very nice for making little sachets for people for Christmas presents, given that we're all at home, and just cut up an old t-shirt or a shirt that's gone past its days and reuse things. I'm terrible. I think thrift should come back into fashion. I think thrift should get sexy. Okay, so daily self-care is, and I want to thank you all for, I got up this morning and put my makeup on. I can't remember the last time I put my makeup on, so I should enjoy it all day. That's the last thing on the list, but it's lovely to have reasons to celebrate, and to celebrate ourselves on a daily basis, which is part of self-care. In the meantime, it's all about the love.
And I really appreciate talking about the self-love and self-care as well. I think that that's something that in these times when a lot of us are anxious and worried and hearing a lot of negative stories about health issues in the news, that really helps us return to our bodies and return to being here now, is just to care for ourselves as well as we can.
People who have HIV positive status, I go back to the 80s, and I was living in London as a lesbian, and I went to so many gay funerals, funerals of gay men with HIV. We are so lucky, and to have a condition like that, and be able to survive and thrive is just amazing. It is amazing, and this is why I practice collaborative medicine. There is so much to offer, and we are so fortunate. And each day is a gift, and living with such a condition, at some stage, you have to have faced that reality. And I think the other thing that's very important for living on an ongoing basis is to avoid secrets. Secrets are not good for the soul. Okay, but finding the balance between not having secrets and trust that's the Goldilocks moment. But look for it wherever possible. And speaking as somebody who has always lived outside the box, the number of positive things that has brought compared to the very few negative things people would hardly believe it. Everything from sending my kids to school to colleagues at work, throughout all of my career, I have been out as a lesbian. I've had friends and indeed exes who were secretive from their families, and it's not good. And this was before the referendum. This was 30 years before the referendum. So people are too busy with their own concerns to be worried about yours. And if there's people who are judging you based on something that's happening in your life and that you're dealing with, and it's a reflection of their own inner problems. It's nothing to do with how valuable you are, or how much love or life you deserve.
Yes, well, that's a really important point, because these things we hold on to in our minds and our mental health does have a strong influence of our well-being and our bodies as well. Certainly, I mean, you would know that very well with the work you do, that there's such a strong connection. And certainly disclosing something especially for people who are living with HIV, is a very can be for many people complicated and can be very rewarding as well.
Yeah.
So thank you. And if people want to follow up with you, that's your...
Oh, we put loads of stuff up on Facebook, Instagram, about how to find herbs in your neighborhood, about some of the different products that we have, including things like rose water and witch hazel that are hard to find, you know, because they're so natural and they're so inexpensive. So, so Facebook, our website, which is Dr. Clare Apothecary, that's what both of them are. And yeah, give us a ring if we can help. And if there's something you can't find on the website, don't hesitate to give us a ring. So we're here. We've been here for 21 years this year. We've just had our 21st anniversary.
Wow.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So again, just thanking Dr. Clare for that, for talking about such personal experiences and also giving us so much information and such an amazing resource for staying well. And again, I love the message too of the vitamin D, because there's even more research coming out now that says it's such an important aspect of what we can do to support our physical health. I now want to introduce you to Dr. Malie Coyne, who is a psychologist practicing here in Galway, who's going to talk to us this morning about the 3 elements of self-compassion. So I will hand over to you now, Malie.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Malie Coyne and I'm a clinical psychologist and NUIG lecturer and author, and also on the mental health advisory panel with A Lust for Life. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I think on a year like this year, which, oh my God, it's just been an unreal type of year in terms of challenge and struggle for human beings all around the world, that I'm honored to be able to share something that I find really, really important for my emotional well-being, and I know will help so many people out there as well. I'm all about self-compassion and the compassionate approach. I recently wrote a book all about it, Love In, Love Out, a compassionate approach to parenting your anxious child, because I feel like using compassion is magical in terms of, at the moment we're living in a world where our threat response is really heightened, and you know, we're thinking of what's going to happen at Christmas, what's going to happen in the future, and you know, we might be also focused on the past. And I think it's really important for me today, therefore, to talk to you about the 3 elements of self-compassion that might help you in managing and navigating the situation that you find yourself in, because we're all in different situations. I understand that, but many of us together are going through this as a human race, you know, the difficulty of living with the COVID pandemic. So the 3 elements of self-compassion are mindfulness is the first one. I'm sure you've all heard of mindfulness. I suppose mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment on purpose and without judgment. So it's this idea of accepting your feelings as they are. We all, you know, have a range of feelings every day, every moment. We might even have a few feelings in one moment. But what happens is many humans judge our feelings. We judge ourselves for, you know, why am I feeling sad, or why am I feeling anxious, and almost get angry with ourselves, or we feel ashamed for how we feel. And if you add shame to a feeling that's already difficult, you're actually making things worse. So if you use mindfulness, which is about, you know, accepting the feeling in the moment and kind of almost letting it wash over you like a wave, and not trying to push it away as much, because I suppose suffering is part of the human existence. And I know it's really hard for many people out there right now. But there's a lot of people who are very anxious at the moment, who are focused on the past or the future. And mindfulness is all about anchoring yourself into the present. So even checking in with yourself and saying, how am I feeling in this moment? How am I? And just breathing in and out, and just even asking yourself, you know, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're having a shower, what does this feel like? And just tuning into yourself without the shame, without the anger at feeling a particular way, and not judging it. Okay. So that's what mindfulness is. The second element of self-compassion is common humanity. I love this idea of common humanity, and I think it's never been as relevant as in the situation we currently find ourselves in. Common humanity is all about our shared human experience of a roller coaster of emotions, okay, and a roller coaster of experiences. Never before now have we all experienced, you know, something so similar. Each and every one of us in the world, the whole human race, is going through this pandemic. And even though your neighbor mightn't feel like you do, even though your experience is very unique to you, and I absolutely don't want to put that down at all, what you're going through is your own experience of it. But sometimes it helps us to feel less alone as human beings if we know that we're not alone, that you're not alone in feeling grief. You're not alone in feeling lonely sometimes. You're not alone in feeling embarrassed, in feeling sad, angry, in having gone through something. You're not alone. And I know it might feel like you are sometimes, but sometimes it helps us to know that we share in these experiences. And for you to say then, you know, this is what it feels like to be sad as a human right now, you know. And I guess, you know, that's what, for me, this idea of common humanity does help, because we have a paradox in our existence as human beings. On one hand, our brains are very much focused towards threat and anxiety. And on the other hand, we are also incredibly resilient and adaptable to situations. And if you even look back over the few months at how you've managed since March, I think it's really important to look at how you've done that, and even to pat yourself on the back. I know it hasn't been easy, but there are tools, there are things that you've used to help you and your family to adapt. So I just wanted to kind of say that. And then the third element of self-compassion or compassion-focused therapy is self-kindness. So the whole idea of self-kindness is to, so first we have the mindfulness, which is acknowledging our feelings. So this, I'm feeling sad at the moment. This is hard. And then the second element is common humanity. This is what it feels like to feel sad as a human being. And the third element is self-kindness, where we put our hand on our hearts and we say, may I be kind to myself in this moment. This is hard. May I be kind. And some of us have real issues with being kind to ourselves, and there are a lot of barriers to doing that. It might come from maybe not feeling worthy enough from when we were younger, or some type of situation has arisen, a traumatic situation for yourself. Or else you might feel like it's selfish to be kind to yourself, or you might feel it's self-indulgent, or, you know, why would I do that? Putting up other people first. I have so many other things to be doing. I'm in all my different roles. And what's the point of it? And I suppose what I'm saying to you is that self-compassion is critical for your emotional well-being. Being kind to yourself is absolutely crucial. It boosts your immune system. It helps you with, you know, in terms of your feel-good chemicals in your brain. It reduces anxiety and depression, and it really contributes so positively to your well-being and to your emotional and your physical well-being. And it's almost like, I call it the soothing balm of self-compassion. And if you find it hard to do it for yourself, what I would say to you is, if your best friend came to you and said, I'm really struggling at the moment with this problem, what would you say to your best friend? How would you say it? You'd probably say, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me more about that. Oh, right. Okay. Gosh, that's tough. God, that's tough. And would you be berating your best friend and telling them, would you snap out of it? And would you get on with it? And, you know, would you be using that voice? You wouldn't, you know. And another lovely way of kind of, you know, learning to talk to yourself with compassion is kind of, and this comes from Matt Burke from Magic Minds podcast. He talks about minding your little self. So even thinking of yourself as a child and minding that little child part of you. How would you talk to the little child part of you if you're struggling? If that little child is struggling, how would you talk to a small child who's struggling? you would be understanding, you would listen to them, you would be kind. And I suppose I'm extending out to you for you to do that to yourselves, for yourselves. So this is a little part of my book, and I'm just going to leave you with maybe we could come up with a little mantra that might be helpful to you. So this is from Love In, Love Out, my book. And I suppose love in, love out is a mantra in a way, because it's all about, for me, it was about kind of pouring love into myself and being able to reflect on what I was doing and being aware and tuning into myself so that I could actually do that for my children and for everyone outside, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You really can't. And that's, so it's not optional, like self-care and looking after yourself is actually not optional. It's crucial. So this is from my book. Because our inner voice has huge power over how we feel about ourselves and how we make sense of and respond to our experiences, compassionate mantras like love in, love out balance the negative inner voice we often tune into during our hardest moments. Many of us, and especially parents, are grandmasters at beating ourselves up at every opportunity we get. Now, this applies to all of us, to children, to grown-ups who used to be children. Being nice to ourselves may feel really alien to some of us. It's as if we think that being hard on ourselves will keep us in line and make us better parents or people. On the contrary, being self-critical doesn't prevent bad things from happening, and it actually can make things worse for us. Being self-critical can be really harmful to both our emotional and physical health and is linked to everything from depression to anxiety to high blood pressure to a general sense of dissatisfaction with life. Just like a physical attack sends our brain's fight or flight freeze response into overdrive, so does an emotional attack, even if we're directing it at ourselves. At times, modern day man's worst predator can be himself. To add insult to injury, when we engage in self-criticism, not only are we the attacked, but we're also the attacker, making the process doubly exhausting. With all this going on in our brains, no wonder self-criticism can lead to anxiety. To make matters worse, self-criticism can also arise from anxiety. This is because people with anxiety can feel alone in their pain and powerless to do anything about it, and they criticize themselves for it. Mantras are in essence the antidote to our brain's age-old tendency towards negativity, and they ensure that self-kindness trumps self-blame. I'm down with that. It's about being mindful of how you talk to and about yourself, because your words are powerful. Examples of mantras would include breathe. It's okay, pet. I say that to myself sometimes when I'm struggling. I actually call myself pet, and I know that might seem weird to people, but it's like I'm almost just soothing myself in that moment, going, Malie, it's okay. You've dropped something again because I'm so clumsy, or things that I do are clumsy. I won't say I'm clumsy, but things can be. But it's about rather than saying to yourself, say if you lose your keys, for God's sake, why did I lose my keys? I'm so stupid. It's about kind of going, oh, right, okay, so I've lost them again, and trying to kind of, I need to find them now, and it's silly now losing keys, but I'm sure I'll find them, and not berating yourself. That it's not about telling your self-critical voice to go away and to F off. It's more about saying, I'm going to turn, because that self-critical voice is there to keep you safe. And I know we all have threat-focused brains, so that's normal. But it's about turning the volume down on that and turning the volume up on the self-compassionate voice, the compassionate voice that talks to your best friend in a compassionate, nice way, the compassionate voice that talks to a child who's struggling in a nice way. So practicing being positive about ourselves to ourselves is a hell of a lot easier when all is rosy in the family garden, when your kids are getting along in a good emotional place. So I suppose, but it's actually during the most challenging moments that practicing self-compassion is really, really important. And this applies to parents, to people who aren't parents, to anybody, absolutely anybody. I've been doing a lot of workshops with Galway Recovery College lately, and these ideas are really resonating with people who have struggled with mental health challenges and with their families. And they also resonate with people who haven't struggled. And there's a really good podcast I did with Sheila Shoiga lately that kind of talks all about self-compassion and certain examples people have written in with, how do they deal with social isolation during COVID, with grief, with feeling upset that events have been cancelled, with just uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen, depression, lots of different things, even the idea of feeling ashamed that they enjoyed their experience of lockdown. But we are all in it together in terms of our common humanity. And what I would say to you, and what I would like you to do as an intention, is maybe to come up with your own mantra in right now. Something that really appeals to you and something that speaks to you. For me, it's love in, love out, and it's okay, pet. But what can you say to yourself right now? What can you say to yourself in times of distress? And put your hand on your heart and say, it's okay, it's okay. And take a deep breath and tune in with yourself. And really, really, I suppose, kind of know that this is a moment of struggle. This is hard for me right now. I'm not alone in my struggle. This is what it feels like to be human and to struggle. And may I be kind to myself in this moment. And I truly hope, and even, having an intention for doing one thing that will be, good for your self-care, be it physical, psychological, emotional, social, spiritual, whatever it is that takes your interest at the moment, that you're curious about, that you feel, oh, well, I do enjoy going for a walk. Maybe I'll do that again. Or I do enjoy doing such and such. And really, it's the intentional care of yourself that's important. And I just want to wish you love and light and love into you, love out. And really, I hope that that this has been helpful to you. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Thank you very much to Dr. Malie Coyne for that very interesting and informative talk around self-compassion. As you said, it is even more essential that we find it in ourselves to be kind to ourselves in these challenging times. I'm delighted to introduce the next session in the seminar. We would like to welcome back Ui Riada. Aisling spoke at one of our seminars a few years back, and participants found her input to be very interesting and useful. Aisling will be looking at how to get the most out of your life.
Hi, my name is Ui Riada. I've spent the last 20 years working and studying in the areas of mental, physical and emotional well-being. I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a mindfulness facilitator, a yoga teacher trainer, I run a small yoga training college, I work with the Student Counselling, the local university, National Counselling Service and some other organisations. Mental and emotional health is a real concern in the Western world today. And I'm really interested not just in how we heal and how we process and recover from our issues, but also how we can get the most out of our life, how we can reach our potential, how we can live with ease and enjoyment and really enjoy, really get the most out of our lives. So there are 5 components that I've put together that I have seen really seem to help people a lot. And these are resilience, acceptance, compassion, empathy and gratitude. And it just so happens that if you put those letters, the first letters together, it's the acronym GRACE, which I think really helps describe what you can get from this method. So we're going to do I'm going to give a little demonstration on each piece, each component. And I think it's really helpful if you try and relate to it with your own life story or your own life experiences. So if you could get a pen and paper, and as I go through each piece of the method, you can maybe write down how this impacts you. So let's start with the resilience. Resilience is how we cope with difficulties or stresses in our lives, whether they're mental, emotional or physical. We're quite sensitive underneath, we're quite vulnerable, so we need to have ways to protect ourselves and to be able to cope with the issues that come in our lives. We're quite complex people, human beings, so there are some simple ways that we're resilient, and then there's also some very complex and unique ways that we can be resilient. An example of a simple resilience strategy is if we're very stressed, we might do some exercise, we'll feel a bit of relief. A more complex way could be if you feel really not good about yourself inside or less than others, you might put someone else down to try and make yourself feel a bit better. We might not be even conscious of that, and that's kind of what makes it more complex. So our resilience strategies, we need to develop them. We need to make them healthy. Healthy resilience strategies are really important. And I'd like to talk through maybe 3 strategies that might be helpful for you to be aware about. So again, like I mentioned a moment ago, we find like there's a lot of research that says that doing exercise really helps us to feel well. It helps move our lymphatic system. It helps increase happy, healthy hormones in the body like serotonin, dopamine. It helps process adrenaline, which we get when we're stressed. So exercise tends to be really good for us and helps us cope with day-to-day stresses. And it's important to find the type of exercise that you enjoy. So whether it's something that really makes you feel uplifted or processes anger or something like that, like running or being part of a sports team, or whether it's something that makes you feel calm and relaxed, like swimming or yoga or walking even, or something that makes you feel light and fun, like dancing, something like that. So finding the type of exercise that's really helpful for you or that makes you feel good is the type of exercise you could be doing. So I think making sure we have some form of exercise in our life is just really important in general. So another type of sort of resilience that we could look at is how we cope with our emotions. So we all have fear, anger, frustration, sadness, and we need to know how to sit with these emotions and how to process them, how to let them be there. So the first way to do that is to admit that we're feeling these emotions. Often we try to pretend to ourselves that we're not angry or we're not scared or we're not frustrated or we're not anxious. But if we can at first admit that those emotions are there and then sit with them and start to address them and look at how we can feel a bit, how we can manage them better. So resilience, mental and emotional resilience is important as well, learning to manage our emotions. Another type of resilience that's really important to look at is our hidden strengths. So you've already built up lots of resilience strategies, and a way to try and find what your hidden strengths are, because we don't realise what we've already done or what we've already achieved or what resilience we've already shown. So if you get your pen and paper and write down different difficult situations that you've been through in your life and what you did that helped you. Even if you feel like it wasn't the most successful situation in your life, you still would have done certain things that were helpful. Like you might have come up with a really good plan to organise something or restructure something to get out of it. You might have fought back. You might have stood up and addressed an issue with someone. You might have learnt or studied something to help you improve your situation so that you could get out of it. So if you can get your pen and paper and write down different difficult situations you've been in your life, and then when you have time, go through them and try and find out, well, what did I do that helped? Was I very kind to someone as a way of dealing with it? Did I come up with a new strategy? You know, what were the good things that you did that really helped you in your resilience to get through those difficult situations? Let's look at acceptance. Acceptance is something that I think we're all very aware of that we need to have in our lives. We need to let go of past situations. We need to accept difficulties that have happened to us in order that we can move forward. However, I think that often we accept things mentally and we say to ourselves in our head, yeah, I accept that, that's fine. But emotionally, we may still feel the pain and we may try and bury that pain and pretend it's not there. Mentally, we're saying we're fine, I've accepted it. Emotionally, it's deep down inside. So to get to that deeper emotion and have a more deep level of acceptance, we need to first of all admit to ourselves that we haven't fully accepted certain things and stop pretending that we have. Now, I know that some things may have been accepted and dealt with, but I'm talking about the things that we haven't fully dealt with emotionally. So again, with your pen and paper, if you want to write down some things that you know you still feel inside. And there will be things in our lives that are so big that we never fully get rid of the pain from them. But by being really honest with ourselves about those things, they can, as we get older and as we go through different experiences, we can change how we feel about them and how we see them if we are open and honest about it. And so even though the pain inside is still there in some ways, it can shift and move and change a bit. Either way, first of all, being honest is really important. And then sort of sinking into the feeling that's there and just allowing yourself to feel it and being okay that you feel it, not being scared of those feelings, and kind of accepting those feelings. The feeling of acceptance itself is actually very peaceful. When you really accept, there is a peaceful feeling. And sometimes with a really difficult emotion, there can be the feeling of that difficult emotion, but because there's also acceptance, there can be a feeling of peacefulness that is there at the same time. And I think that's the place that we need to get to when we're getting to a deeper level of acceptance. It's not that all pain suddenly disappears, it's just that there's a peacefulness that goes side by side with it. And that makes it easier to bear or be okay with or to sit with, I suppose. And I think mindfulness is a very helpful practice here, because mindfulness also focuses on a sense of accepting what is. And if you're working on a mindfulness practice and you're accepting what is, it can help you with just general acceptance in your life. So let's talk a little bit about compassion. At a very basic level, a deep need of ours is to feel compassionate, to feel loved and to feel loving. It's so basic that we take it for granted, ignore it, assume it's there, or just avoid it altogether. Certain things like feeling shame or guilt or having a harsh inner critic, a part of our mind that gives out to us all the time, can really be detrimental to the whole compassion process or feeling loved process. If we don't feel loved by ourselves or by others, then we can feel very hurt inside. You're the only person that lives inside of you, and you're the only person who can work on that inner environment. And we all deserve to have a healthy inner environment where we feel cared for by ourselves, as well as cared for by others around us. So compassion is really important as a process and empathy to work on within ourselves and in our environment with the people in our lives. Interesting things like pet therapy, like there was research that said that people who slept with their pets had a better night's sleep and a deeper sleep than when they didn't sleep with their pets. So feeling loved is really important to work on. So again, if you want to take your pen and paper and write down anything that might stop this process for you. So look at what you say to yourself in your head. Are you critical of yourself? Do you say you should be better, or you're not good enough, or you're useless, or people don't like you? Or we have these patterns that we tend to repeat over and over. So maybe trying to be really honest about the types of patterns of what you're saying to yourself, or what the sense is of what you're saying to yourself, or how you feel towards yourself. It kind of has to start with ourselves. We need to feel good towards ourselves, and then when we're feeling really loving towards ourselves, it's so easy to let that love flow out. Kind of what's on the inside sort of comes out a lot of the time, and if we feel really good towards ourselves, we can be really good towards others. Of course, sometimes we're not nice to ourselves and we're nice to others, but there's a general sense that it's obviously a lot healthier to be good towards ourselves and others as well. So maybe write some of these things down and start to address them. And if you do find that there is a harsh inner critic or a part of you that's not very kind to yourself, really looking at that and why is that there? And even if it's true, and if you believe it's true, are you sure, and why? And what do you need to do to change any difficult inner voices so that you can increase the compassion for yourself and equally for others in your life? So let's look at gratitude. We live in a world that tends to focus more on materialistic gains, what we have, what we own, what we can get. And yet these things are external to us, whereas real mental emotional health often comes from inside of us, feeling connected, feeling cared for, feeling caring. People who are grateful tend to feel that they're lucky, that they got things, that they were cared for and they received, and that increases their feeling of being loved. The research says that people who have a lot of gratitude, especially on a daily basis, they tend to be happier, they tend to be more socially connected, they have higher self-esteem, they deal with stress better, they have a more positive outlook on life, including their health, including their well-being, their attitude to exercise, their attitude to relationships, their self-esteem is all quite high, positive. So there are two ways of looking at how to increase gratitude in your life. One is to look at how grateful you are for the things that you have, and the other is to, often when you feel gratitude, there's a desire to give back. You feel like you've gotten so much, you want to give back. So gratitude can often tie in with doing some charity work or doing some things that support others. And it's important, if you're going to do something like that, to do something that feels right for you. Not just like, I should do charity work and that makes me feel good. Like to find something that you really enjoy and really feel like you get something out of. And that, it could be anything. It could be walking dogs. It could be just helping out in a local area. You know, it could be anything. So for now, let's focus on a gratitude practice. If you want to sit back, relax your neck and shoulders, your face muscles, your arms, your legs. Take 3 deep, slow breaths. So try and sink into yourself. Try and relax into yourself a little bit. Try and slow down, sink into yourself. And then start to think about the things that you have in your life that you're grateful for. So it could be really simple things like the nice meal you had yesterday and the fact that you had taste buds to taste it and that your teeth were okay so you were able to chew it. Or you could think about the fact that you have legs that get you places. You know, if you didn't have legs, you'd really miss them. So it's amazing all that you can do just because you have 2 legs, and we completely take them for granted. There are so many things to be grateful for. The people who've been kind to you in your life. Even someone who maybe smiled at you randomly recently or as you were passing them on the street. For having a warm home. For having food to eat. Sometimes these things can be sort of overlooked or seem a bit maybe cheesy or something. But it's actually really important to appreciate just the simple things in life. Nature, trees, the sea, all the beautiful things that we have around us. So as I'm finishing this talk now, if you could maybe take a few minutes when this is over and just spend some time really connecting deep inside yourself, really relaxing into yourself and thinking about what has been good or what is good in your life, and feeling lucky that you do have those things and being appreciative of them. I really wish you all the best on the rest of your journey. If you want to delve into these practices more, there's more stuff you can find online, or there's a book that I've written called Grace that helps to explain these practices better, explain our psyche better, and to help us delve deeper into this method. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Aisling. That was really a useful thought exercise to be able to write down gratitudes, to write down our strengths, and to think about our self-talk. So now I'm going to introduce Patrick McKeown. Patrick is going to talk to us about bringing quietness to the mind, and such an important topic. He has some great exercises lined up for us to do, and I really hope that you get the opportunity to participate and to have a think about the important messages, because certainly there's a lot of chatter in our minds at the moment. There's a lot of anxieties around our health, around COVID, and obviously we've got, 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks till Christmas. It's a busy time and there's been so much change, and with lockdowns ending and everything. So, You know, there's a lot of chatter going on in our heads, and I'm certainly looking forward to a few moments of quietness in my mind. So I'll hand you over to Patrick now. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Nicole, for World AIDS Day in 2020. The topic that I want to talk about is bringing a quietness to the mind. It's very common for society, Western society especially, that individuals' minds are very active and often a racing mind. And a racing mind is when we look at the content of the thoughts going through the mind, the content is often self-critical, it's negative, it's repetitive, it's incessant, and it drains us of energy. And the one thing about our thinking is that when we are thinking negative thinking, the body doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined event. So if we are worried and if we are plagued with negative thinking, that in turn, the body is going to interpret it as a real event. And that can have repercussions of the body. So mental health is really important. And it's talking about the mind, not just from a psychological point of view or from an academic point of view, but from a theoretic, but from an experiential point of view. When we consider the human mind and we consider just how often we have our attention stuck in the mind and we're going from thought to thought, it's almost that we spend most of our living life, waking time, stuck in our head. And with that, when we are stuck in our head, we miss a lot what life has to offer because we are not connecting with life if we are living in our heads. I lived in my head for 20 years. I do believe that Western education trains us to live in our heads to some degree. I went through the school system here, as many of you have. I was trained how to analyze, to break information into pieces. We were trained how to think, but we were not trained how to stop thinking. It's very important that we learn to be able to bring a quietness to the mind because the mind is a double-edged sword. Just as a fire, just as you might be in a sitting room on a very cold winter's night and the fire that's lighting is bringing you warmth and solace. But if the fire gets out of control, it'll burn the house down. The mind is the same. And the mind is the filter through which we experience all of life's events. And yet we don't stand back and ask, just how does my mind work? So we are trying to create space in between our thoughts to bring a quietness to the mind, to be able to take our attention from the mind onto the breath. But we are focusing on the breath to bring a softness to life, to improve our happiness. And ultimately, that's what we want to do as human beings. But the human mind very often gets in the way and it sabotages our happiness. Somebody did something to us 10 years ago. They have done it once, and we have done it to ourselves ever since. We're living in the past. We're anxious about the future. So my whole point is, how do we bring our attention into the present moment? There are 3 ways that I typically use, and of course there's going to be many more. But one way is to take our attention out of the mind onto our breathing. If you soften your breathing to take less air into the body, it's remarkable. When you breathe less air, you improve blood flow and you improve oxygen delivery. The idea about the usefulness of taking a big and full and deep breath is not correct. If you breathe more air than what you're used to, you don't bring in any more oxygen. The blood is already almost fully saturated with normal breathing. But the more air you breathe, the more carbon dioxide you remove from the blood through the lungs. And carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas. Carbon dioxide plays a role in dilating your blood vessels, in opening your blood vessels, in improving your blood circulation. So it's very common for people with poor breathing habits, as I had, to have cold hands and cold feet and to have brain fog. I was breathing hard. I was breathing fast. I was breathing using my upper chest, but I didn't realize it at the time that the more air I was taking into my body, the less oxygen that was getting delivered throughout the body. And that's been known since 1904. And that doesn't have helpful effects in terms of health and especially in terms of the mind. It is true that when we get stressed, our breathing becomes faster in upper chest, but faster in upper chest breathing is going to feed back into stress. So when we look at breathing, number one is to have our attention on the breath. And yes, it's normal that the mind wanders, but then you bring your attention back onto your breathing. And at first, it can be a little bit frustrating. Try not to get frustrated. That's not the intention. It can happen. The one thing that is crucial to bringing functional breathing together is to breathe in and out through your nose, both during rest, during sleep, and also during physical exercise. And I will just, I'm giving you my own experience here. I was that mouth breather. My mind was always angst. My concentration was affected. My sleep was affected. I read about the importance of nose breathing and breathing light, that really soft breathing, back in 1998. And I started practicing it. And breathing light breathing signifies that our breathing during rest should be imperceptible. It should be hardly noticeable. So breathe light is a good pillar in terms of breathing, but we should also learn to breathe low. And what I mean by breathing low is that if you were to place your hands on either side of your lower ribs, that as you breathe in, your ribs are gently moving outwards. And as you breathe out, your ribs are gently moving inwards. So just at the base of your ribs, place your hands either side of your lower ribs. And as you breathe in, you should feel that your ribs are gently moving out. And as you breathe out, you should feel that your ribs are gently moving in. And as you breathe in, you should feel that your ribs are gently moving out. And as you breathe out, you should feel that your ribs are gently moving in. So what you were looking to achieve is about 80% of the movement of your breathing down low. When we breathe with greater amplitude of the diaphragm, this in turn helps to bring a calmness to the mind. So the instruction to take a deep breath is actually correct, but the interpretation of the deep breath is often incorrect. The third dimension of breathing that we look at is slowing down the pace of your breathing to about 6 breaths per minute. Because it's through our breathing that we can influence the functioning of the autonomic nervous system. So this is the automatic functioning of your body. You can, for example, influence your heart rate. You can influence your blood pressure. You can influence your state of mind. Slow breathing is really important to help stimulate what's called the vagus nerve. It's a nerve that's wandering throughout the human body. And the vagus nerve is innervating most major organs and communicating a lot of this information back to the brain. Now, when we slow down our breathing, we stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, in turn, secretes a substance called acetylcholine, and this causes a slowing of the heart rate. This helps to activate the body's parasympathetic response, the body's relaxation response. When you breathe slowly, the information that's conveyed from the body back to the brain is that the body is breathing slow, and the brain is interpreting that slow breathing, that the individual, that everything is okay. So I want you to try this now. Can you gently soften your breathing? And you're focusing on the airflow coming into your nose, and you're focusing on the airflow as it's gently leaving your nose. And the whole objective is, as you breathe in, can you really slow down the speed of the air as it enters your nose? And at the top of the breath, bring a total feeling of relaxation to the body, that you're having a relaxed and a prolonged and gentle exhalation. And after you breathe out, then take a very soft and slow and gentle breath in. And you're taking a soft and slow and gentle breath in to the point almost that hardly any air is coming into your nose. And at the top of the breath, a total feeling of relaxation, that you're having a gentle and relaxed breath out. A slight variation of this is to put one finger underneath your nose like this. You're focusing on the airflow onto your finger, and you are pretending that your finger is a feather. So you're focusing on the airflow coming into your nose. You're taking a very soft and gentle breath coming into your nose. And at the top of the breath, you have a total feeling of relaxation to the body and a slow and prolonged and relaxed exhalation, that your breathing is so light that the feather doesn't move. That exercise will serve 2 to 3 purposes. Number 1, you have your attention out of your mind on your breathing. Number 2, the objective is to increase carbon dioxide in the blood a little bit. Number 3, that's going to improve blood flow and oxygen delivery, has a calming effect on the central nervous system. Number 4, when you focus on your breathing and when you are deliberately reducing the volume of air that you breathe to create air hunger, your mind is more anchored onto your breath and there's less of a tendency of the mind to wander. Breathe light, breathe slow, and breathe deep. And an easy way to remember that is LSD. So those of you, the 1990 generation of teenagers, I think now you will remember how should you breathe. You should breathe light, you should breathe slow, and you should breathe deep. In today's modern world, a second extension of our body is the mobile phone. And many companies, such as the high-tech companies, including Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and LinkedIn, and all of these social media platforms who really don't care about the user in any shape or form, their whole purpose is to make people as addicted as possible to their technology. And all of these social media platforms are increasing anxiety of the mind. But if I start scrolling down the feed of Instagram, any of the males that I see, they're all really good looking males. They've all got 6-packs. They're all got their shirts off and they're posing. And the more I scroll down the feed of Instagram, the more that I will think that, oh, it must be normal that every male must have a 6-pack and to look so well and to look so good. It's a total distorted sensation of reality. My point on this is, don't waste your time on a mobile phone. It does not help the mind. It will contribute to anxiety. And since the mobile phone has come into existence, unfortunately, anxiety and depression and suicide has all increased, and especially because of the pressures, because of the ideas that we should be all looking beautiful and well, and of course, younger people are going to be vulnerable. Be selective about the information that you bring into your head. If you listen to the news, do it once daily. Find out what's going on if you want to know what's going on, but then switch off the news. Otherwise, if you listen to the news at 7 a.m., COVID, 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 8 a.m., COVID, 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 don't overload yourself with information that's not going to help you. We know about COVID because it is going to contribute to anxiety. Now, why did I bring in social media and media, etc.? Because all of these take your attention. And what I would like you to do is give yourself some attention. Switch off the mobile phone. And the time that you usually spend on your mobile phone, direct that attention inwards. Bring that attention out of your mind, into your body, onto your breath. Place your attention on your breathing. Gently slow down your breathing. Breathe light, breathe slow, and breathe deep. And the foundation to this is breathing in and out through the nose. Now, how do we have a good night's sleep? If we have poor quality sleep, it is going to affect the mind. I used to be a chronic mouth breather during sleep. I used to wake up with a dry mouth every morning. And going into secondary school, going into university, you were required to study. You were required to be able to hold your attention on academic material and to be able to retain that information and regurgitate it. How can you retain information if you don't have the energy and the concentration? Sleep is vitally important, and the elephant in the room when it comes to sleep is the importance of breathing in and out through the nose. If you're waking up with a dry mouth in the morning, you're more likely to have sleep disorder breathing. And the relationship here is that poor sleep quality is going to contribute to fatigue and anxiety of the mind. So when we think of the emotions, and when we think of breathing, and when we think of sleep, they are all interlinked. If we are stressed out, that is going to impact our sleep, because we cannot fall asleep quickly if the mind is racing. If you have a stressful day, if you're not able to switch off, if you're constantly in that state of fight or flight, that the nervous system that's activated is the sympathetic response, it's difficult to fall asleep, and you'll spend many hours twisting and turning. Our emotions and the mind, if it's racing, will impact our sleep. But if we don't have good sleep quality, it impacts our emotions. If we are stressed, it impacts our breathing. We breathe harder and faster. And if we breathe harder and faster during sleep, we're more likely to be awoken from sleep. My point is about the bidirectional relationship of how one function of the body is entangled and contributing and influencing to another. So when we look at health, the three most important functions that I would be looking at are the emotions, breathing, and sleep. So if you wake up with a dry mouth in the morning, make a concerted effort to get your mouth closed at night. Now, there are different mouth tapes on the market. One that would be safer, and the only reason that I present that, it's called MyoTape. So we developed a tape that surrounds the mouth to bring the lips together, so it doesn't cover the lips. So if you're apprehensive about getting your mouth closed and you're thinking that your nose is going to block during your sleep, by the way, your nose will never fully block once you continue breathing through it. And the human nose is probably one of the most underrated organs in the human body. And look at the functions it does. Well, first of all, if we think of the functions of the nose in terms of breathing, moistening, regulating volume, warming air, harnessing nasal nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is antiviral. So we think about COVID. Don't stand there with your mouth open. We have literally absolutely no defense. The mouth, in terms of breathing, performs zero function, no function. Mouth breathing activates the upper chest. Mouth breathing is fast breathing. Fast breathing and upper chest breathing agitates the mind. So it's not just that stress is impacting our breathing, but how we breathe is impacting our stress levels. And we know as human beings, we cannot cope with long-term stress. We are not adapted. We have not evolved to be able to cope well with long-term stress. But here is the thing. If you have your attention on your breathing, no matter what is happening outside in the external environment, bring your attention inwards. Gently slow down your breathing. Don't have your attention stuck in your head. To bring a quietness to the mind is take your attention out of the mind into your body. If you go for a walk, walk with every cell of your body. Don't just be ahead. Bring your attention out of your mind, out of the head, and disperse it throughout the body. You could feel the ground as each footstep is connecting with the pavement, or if you're out in grass, or if you're out in woodlands. Bring your attention completely out of the mind into the body. Feel the inner sensations in the body. How often do you spend your attention completely immersed in the five senses? That you're in present moment awareness, that you're out of your mind, that you are looking, but you are really looking, that you are listening, but you are really listening. Can you set aside, can you put the incessant and the active mind aside, the critical mind aside, and can you really connect with life? When you walk down that street, can you look with a soft glance, having your attention fully in present moment awareness? Can you listen? Can you taste? Can you feel? Can you touch? And this is how we relate to life. But how many of us relate to life? Because we have a habit of thinking. And as Oscar Wilde says, thinking is a disease, and people die of it just like any other disease. It can be very useful if you are dealing with confrontation. So say, for example, if somebody is sitting in front of me, and if they're giving out to me, and I'm looking at them, and they're giving out, I will make an immediate practice to bring my attention into my body. And I'm not going to surrender my attention to them. I will keep my attention in the body. It will create some space that you don't react, that you can choose how to react as opposed to an impulsive reaction. Connect with that constant source of calmness. Now, it is a learning process, and it is normal that you'll have ups and downs, and this is the way it is. But I will say this. You will never waste any time bringing your attention out of your mind onto your breathing, even if it's only for a couple of brief seconds. The mind wanders off, bring your attention back. Connect with that constant source of calmness. The body is always there. It's always that state. It's that constant that we can relate to it. Don't live in your head. Get out of your head. Close it for now. All the best and take care.
Thanks so much for that, Patrick. Some very useful tools to use, and I can just feel calmer from the experience of focusing on my breath in that session. And now I'm going to introduce you to our final speaker for today, who's Aisling Richmond. Another Aisling, brilliant name. I have a daughter called Aisling myself, so I'm in great favour of the Aislings. Aisling's going to talk to us today about calming your nervous system. So I'm really looking forward to hearing this.
Hello, my name is Aisling Richmond, and I'm a somatic therapist, yoga teacher, and also a PhD student in psychology and leadership. What I'd really like to offer you is, first of all, a little information on the nervous system, and then some practice where you get to check it out for yourself. So before we begin, I just invite you to prepare your space for the practice that will follow later in the session. Maybe make sure mobile phones are off. You're not going to be disturbed. And also see if you might need cushions or a blanket to hand so you can really make yourself as comfortable as possible. So why focus on the nervous system? Well, the nervous system underlies our emotional responses, our ability to regulate fear and stress, and also can affect our relationships, how we interact with one another. So you can think of our nervous system as almost like the foundations or roots of our being that everything else can build on from there, as long as we're in a state of regulation and balance. But of course, life's not like that, and we can have situations that we face that can really stretch our nervous system into imbalance. So our nervous system is there to help us sustain life. We have two different complementary parts: the sympathetic, which helps us to activate and engage and move and do. And then we have the parasympathetic, which is more calming, it's to rest and digest. So nature has given us these to both help us get things done in life and also to rest when we need to as well. So ideally, there's a dance between the two, sympathetic, parasympathetic. But when we're under stress, when there's trauma, when there's fear, our nervous system can get stuck in either hyper arousal or hypo. So I have a little diagram here to share with you to explain this a little bit more. So you've probably heard of the fight, flight, freeze response. And these are really nervous system happenings. So remember we talked about our sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. So these are the basics of this main part of the nervous system we're going to look at today. So when we get overwhelmed, when we get stressed, when there's pain, when there's distress, the sympathetic nervous system can kick in as fight. This might show up as irritability, anger, aggression, finding that people are just annoying us and we're reacting to them. Yeah? So that's when our nervous system is in a fight mode. We might be in flight. This can show up as anxiety, as fear, as panic, avoiding, chronic worry. What if? The brain can recycle and recycle situations that aren't real right now, but that feel very real, feel looming. So that's our flight response. Then we can also go into what's called the freeze response, where we can feel stuck, in collapse, immobilized, where we can space out, dissociate, can feel shame, depression. And the last response when our nervous system is out of balance is fawn. We might people please, avoid conflict, find it hard to ask for our needs and really go into the other's needs more than our own, and it can be really hard to say no and set boundaries. Yeah. So that's just a simple look at the nervous system. And what I'd love to explore now with you is how can we recognize when our nervous system is out of balance? How can we regulate that? And how can we then bring resilience? So recognize, regulate, and building resilience. Yeah, that trio. So how might you recognize that you're in a sympathetic fight-flight mode? Your heart might be racing. You might find yourself tense a lot of the time, bracing. You might find yourself irritable, angry, as we talked about in the diagram earlier. But just to look at more the how this will show up in your body right now. So fight and flight might be feeling activated, agitated, like there's energy in your body that wants to move. Yeah? And the parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is more like where you feel you're in a collapse. You just feel fatigued. You have no energy. You just feel like anything can feel like a struggle. Really, any kind of movement can feel like a real struggle. It's that shutdown, it's that curling in, it's that collapse. And this all stems from our ancient evolutionary past. We share the same nervous system as the animal kingdom. So when an animal feels under threat, it has the options to either fight. So say there's a tiger that's coming in to attack a mammal. The mammal can turn around and decide it wants to fight the tiger. Yeah? Or it may be like, forget that, I'm out of here, and it will run. Yeah, it will run. Or maybe it realizes it doesn't have any of those options, and so it'll play dead. It'll curl into a little ball and play dead. Yeah? And then, hopefully, if it survives, it gets up, shakes the energy off, and then it goes about its business. So nature has a way to help us with survival threats and to discharge any of the energy that can be there after. But in our modern society, we've kind of lost this natural ability of how to regain balance after we've been either hyper-arousal or hypo, okay? Sympathetic, fight, flight, parasympathetic, freeze, play dead, okay? So what I'd love to share with you now is a short practice and how to begin to bring balance to the nervous system through some embodiment, somatic practice. I want to acknowledge, first of all, that the thought of coming into your body might be really hard for you right now, especially if your body is where you carry pain and distress. So hope that I can offer you some choices if it's feeling too uncomfortable to be in your body right now, that you can focus on something through your eyes, through your hearing, that's not in your body, but still is through the senses. Yeah. So if you can, coming to lying down on the ground, make a comfortable nest for yourself, cushions, blankets if you need them. Or if you want, you can also do this from seated, if lying down is not going to be comfortable for you. Take a moment or two to find the optimal place for your body right now. When you feel ready, just take the hands behind the head. Feel yourself beginning to rest the head back into the hands. And just let the eyes drift over to the right. And let's just pause here for a moment. So this is the first step in rebalancing the nervous system. Just let the eyes stay over to the right for maybe another 10-20 seconds. And just waiting until naturally a yawn or an opening of the mouth to release through your jaw begins to happen. Doesn't have to be a full yawn, just whatever comes with that invitation. Just letting the breath be natural now. Maybe you find a little movement needs to come into the jaw, into the throat a little more. And then let's return the eyes to center and then over to the other side. So eyes travel out to the left now. So this is an exercise to help balance part of your nervous system, the dorsal vagus nerve. So again, eyes are drifting to the left. And just inviting that there be a yawn or a stretch through the mouth. And notice how that's beginning to feel. So again, if you're finding that there's a lot of discomfort in the body right now, keep the attention through the eyes focused on something that feels pleasant to look at in the environment around you. And then slowly returning the head to center, just releasing the arms down by your side. And let's take the hand onto the belly. So just resting the hands now onto your stomach. And as you lie or sit back in your chair, I invite you to feel what is supporting you right now. Is it the chair? Is it the ground beneath? Bringing your attention to what you're in contact with that's holding and supporting you right now. Again, if at any time this is too much to stay so attentive to the body, just let your eyes connect with something around you that looks pleasant. Otherwise, feel yourself begin to become heavier. To release your weight into the supports around or beneath. Just like you can soften even a little bit. Begin to feel the breath rising to meet your hands. and falling again as you breathe out. Just like a big balloon that's filling and emptying again. Notice if your breath naturally begins to deepen as you do this. This really brings us into parasympathetic rest and digest. Notice how this feels to you. If at any time it's uncomfortable, not feeling right, please do what you need to do. Move. Take your eyesight to look at something in the room, whatever you need. Following the breath like a wave that's rippling through you. Filling the belly, filling the chest, and then emptying and releasing again. I'd even like to try a few sign breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I invite you to slide a hand up to your heart. So we have a hand on belly, a hand on the heart. And let yourself feel the contact of the hand as a gesture of self-compassion now, of tenderness, of care. And just breathing into that for the next 10-20 seconds. And then see how you'd like to bring this to completion for yourself. Noticing I'm enjoying a little movement of hand over the heart. Maybe even hand on the belly, giving a little rub. Whatever feels comforting right now. And then see how you'd like to transition. Maybe a little movement, maybe a little stretch. And then, when you feel ready, coming back to seated, or to eyes open, or taking what you need right now. So, thank you so much for your attention and sending you my very best wishes from here.
Well, I hope you agree that that was a great seminar with first-class contributions and extremely helpful insights and techniques from all to support us and encourage our physical and mental resilience. I would like to point out that all of the contributors have freely given their time and expertise to help with this seminar, and we are truly grateful for their support. So a very special thank you to Dr. Dilis, Clare, Dr. Malie, Coyne, Ui Riada, Patrick McKeown, and Richmond. There are a couple of other events across World AIDS Day that I'd like to also share with you. At 3 p.m. this afternoon, we have an online book reading from Liz Martin. Liz Martin is the author of Still Standing, an Irish woman's story of HIV and hope. Please find the link in the box below on the screen at the end of the seminar. We are also holding a Walk 5, Donate 5, Nominate 5 event to raise awareness around HIV. It's a walk, run 5 kilometers, donate €5, and nominate 5 others to do the same. We have lots of spot prizes for those entering the event, including prizes kindly donated to us from McDonald's Fish and Chips, the Bean Tree, So Galway, Evergreen, and Away with the Fairies Fairy Doors in Loughrea. We thank them for the very kind sponsorship of the event. There are also many other great spot prizes available for those who enter, so please, I encourage you to enter the event. If you go and check our social media right now, you will find the links to the above. I would like to thank you all for taking time to watch this seminar, and I hope you've enjoyed it and have found it to be benefit. And just a reminder that this seminar will be available online right through to the end of December. Thank you.